Welcome back to the Old Iron Lover channel. My name is Bob, and we're going to do something we've never done before. I'm actually going to take you on a field trip of sorts to northwest Colorado, where a old friend of mine has a ranch. And he's recently decided that he wants to clean up a bunch of the old iron laying around in the ranch. And I went up to help him, and it is quite a show. The ranch was, the property the ranch is on, was homesteaded in the 1910-1920 era. And the two families that homesteaded it apparently lived there up into the 30s, possibly into the 40s. And I don't know the history in between. I know it's been in their family now for my friend's family for 50, 60 years, I would imagine. So anyway, what I'm going to tell you is what I know about these pieces, whether it's actually true or not. It's oral history and a little bit of poking around on the internet and whatever. This equipment, after the people that homesteaded it were done with it, they just left it up there. Nothing ever got hauled off. The story is that they came to the area in wagons, horse-drawn wagons, and you'll see I've got some remnants of that era. We have farm equipment going all the way from the 19-teens all the way up to the 1980s, 80s, 90s, something like that. But most of what you're going to see as far as the antique stuff is going to be in the 1920s to 1940s. Anyway, kind of going to do this in two pieces. One section is going to be just a slideshow of the equipment that we rescued. We did what we could to get it on its normal wheels. However, most of the tires wouldn't hold air, or if they were steel rimmed, they might be missing. The wheels might be missing. We did what we could to make them relatively transportable, and then we towed them into a lot where we're going to sell all the stuff. The second part is small stuff. I see on eBay things like this advertised as steampunk stuff, steampunk. And I don't know the origin of that, and when I first heard about it, I thought maybe it was a guy's username or something, but it's actually a term referring to old iron things that become art objects or yard art or whatever. We're expecting the old equipment that you'll see in the slideshow probably to be sold as yard art. And then stuff they could haul in the back of my pickup easily, I brought back into in home, and I'm going to show you some of that. And I'm going to actually sell that stuff on eBay if it will fit in a flat rate box. If not, I will sell it locally on Craigslist, and whatever, word of mouth and so on. So anyway, like I say, what I'm telling you about the stuff is what I believe to be true, but it is based on oral history and how people remember things. So anyway, let's get on with the video. When I went out to the far end of the property to recover a horse-drawn disc, I found these two old axles laying on top of it, so I had to move them to get the disc out, and I thought I might as well recover them since they have the original wooden axles in them, and this is kind of a good lead into some of the axle parts that we're going to show next. I mentioned that the people that homesteaded this place came into the area on covered wagon or horse-drawn wagons, not necessarily covered wagons. This may have been cargo wagons or whatever. And if you're not familiar with those old wagons, there's an interesting piece here. There's actually three pieces to it. There's the center piece, or this part right here. Get it back to you here. Anyway, the end of the wooden axle would be carved to fit this, and it would be wedged inside of the piece. It goes in a long way. And then on the outside is this piece here, and this one's stuck, but it's a separate piece. And then there's a nut on the outside that holds the whole thing together. As you may not have thought about, these come in a left thread and a right thread. So the left hand thread is on the left side of the wagon, so the motion of the wheel tends to keep the nut tight rather than loosening it. In researching this, I found out what these are called. And I don't know if the whole thing or just this piece or what, but I believe it's the whole thing. It's called an axle skein, S-K-E-I-N. And going back to the axle skeins for a minute, there's these are the outer pieces, two different styles, two different sizes. Not much to them. They're just a big old hollow piece that goes over the other piece. So. This is a horse-drawn disc. It could have been pulled by a tractor later on in life, but anyway, the two trays on the back of it are rock boxes, and it's not very heavy, so they could add rocks as needed to get the amount of depth in the plow they needed. Another horse-drawn piece. This is a Dane mower sold by John Deere. It is manufactured between 1912 and 1922. This is a single bottom plow. It also was probably horse-drawn. This is a Satley RV1 or RVI two-shank cultivator. The Satley brothers manufactured horse-drawn tillage tools from 1916 to 1937. I believe it could be used with the sweeps that you see there, or with other tilling tools such as a moldboard plow or chisel points on it. And this is what remains of a single bottom plow. There's a lot of the parts are missing off of it. This is a two bottom plow. Can't tell you much more than that about it. This is a corn planter, and it's a Deere and Mansour, and the Deere in this case is one of John Deere's sons, and Mansour was a partner to the Deeres for a long time. This could have been horse-drawn or tractor-drawn, and they were manufacturing planters starting in 1877, and it was acquired by the Deere and Company in 1911. It's possible they didn't change the design of the seed can lids until later, but the lid on it does say Deere and Mansour Company. But comparing the pictures, to this picture to other pictures of items similar to it on the internet, this may predate the Deere and Company acquisition. So my best guess it was made before 1911. And this is a B.F. Avery and Sons two-way plow. The plow and tongue could be reversed to pull either direction, very likely horse-drawn. And B.F. Avery and Sons were a big company around the turn of the century. This is a dump rake, and
It looks to have originally been horse-drawn and was maybe converted to tractor pull later. Once the rake was full, the operator would raise the teeth and dump the contents in a pile. Okay, not much to be said about this. It's a manure spreader, and it was pulled by a tractor. And this is a spring tooth harrow. And a 4-bottom plow. And this is a 5-shank cultivator. And again, it's possible that the sweeps that are on it now could have been changed out for some other tillage implement. And this is a potato planter. It was made by Oliver, and it came from the 1930s or 40s. And the front boxes on it were for fertilizer or something like that. And if you have a potato planter, you need a potato digger. So that's what we have here. And that's about all of the farm equipment, but I'll throw a good little video in here of the antelope spook. There's a herd of about, oh golly, 40 animals that hang around the ranch, and they're used to kind of having the ranch to themselves and the deer, and they're pretty skittish. So anybody comes near, just driving down the road next to the edge of the ranch, they take off.
Among the various pieces of equipment that we looked at, brought back to life as much as we could, were a couple of International Harvester. They're actually has some Deere McCormick type stuff, logos on them and things. But anyway, they're binders, and this is kind of a precursor to a baler, I guess. It's either a mower or baler type thing, but basically it's a baler. And this thing would gather up cuttings from the field, whether it be straw or hay or whatever, and accumulate it on one end, and then it'd run a piece of twine around it and actually put a knot in it. These things we think came from the 1930s or up into the 40s somewhere. There's two of them, and they weren't mobile at all. They had been cannibalized. Many parts were already taken off of them. So I just went ahead and got any pieces left that look like they might be interesting. We're not going to do anything with these. They may possibly be taken in for scrap if we can figure a way to load them onto a trailer. So the first item I show you here is the toolbox that came off of it. It has the International Harvester logo on it, and has the old wooden bottom in it. It's in pretty good shape, and even on the bottom side has some of the red paint left. So nice old artifact. Also from the binders, there was two of them, and a lot of the parts were missing, but this twine can was still there. And this is, you put a spool of twine down inside of it, and it would be a place that the knotter would pull the twine from to tie the bales up. And these things are rusted. There's one that's completely squashed. Bottom's rusted out, and it's not very good shape. Somebody may want it as is, but what I was thinking is that these fancy latches here might be something somebody want to cut the rivets on and make it into a toolbox latch or something. So anyway, again, another artifact from the binders. In fact, several things came off of them. This item really attracted me. It's a shield off of the top of one of the binders. I like this one because it has the International logo on it, and it says "Deering New Idea" or "New Ideal" on it, and it's in pretty good shape. And I'm sure somebody's going to want that for some wall art. So this ought to sell well. There are several names with the deer in it in this old stuff. There's deer, deering, John Deere, and along mixed in with that is International Harvester or International, and McCormick. You see McCormick Deering. This John Deere was the founder of a company that made farm implements, and eventually grew up into what it is today. And then he had two sons, Augustus, I think, was one, and I can't remember the other guy's name, but two sons that also manufactured things under the name of Deere or Deering. And anyway, you can look all this up online. But I thought this was an interesting piece. Here's a hay pulley, and it was it's called a hay rope pulley, and the brand on it is Loudon's Knot Pulley, K-N-O-T, and it's all, you know, stamped in here, stuck, but it's still a pretty historic piece. Here's another piece. I think it came off of one of the binders, but it's just a ratchet lever, or a ratchet, I don't know what you'd call it, a piece. So that you're swinging a handle back and forth, you have a squeezed lock, and when you let go of it, a spring pushes this pin down in there, part of the lever, into the detent here, so you can set your plow parts, or you know, whatever, from, you know, low to high in there like that. Anyway, interesting old piece. It's just kind of a decorative thing. Here's a bigger one. Again, a lever would be pinned here and then swing back and forth this way, and wherever you release the handle, the pin or the bar would drop in here and lock it. I have some of the levers and controls and things off of the old binders, and one of them I thought was particularly interesting was this foot pedal, complete with a strap that was on it at one time, still on it, and it's got a little star emblem, or a star cut out on the bottom of the pedal. This, I believe, is a newer piece. This is a John Deere. It's a bearing. It's a wheel bearing or a hub, and the 3 bolts went onto a wheel, sandwiched a hub that has 3 holes in it, and on the end it's got the John Deere. I'll turn it right side up. That's right side up. It's got the John Deere logo, and it's got some. I did have it right side up. So on the end, it's got the John Deere logo and some part numbers and things on it. So anyway, thought that would be interesting. Maybe somebody's got the piece of equipment that still uses it and they need a hub. Ow, ow, ow. And this wheel, we don't know what it came off of, but my friend told me what it was. It was not to carry the equipment, but it was to do something with the actual ground or the harvesting or the planting type things. So it came in contact, not for carrying weight, but for applying pressure to something. Yeah, he told me what it was, and I've forgotten now. But got a little crank on either side of it. A less ornate piece is this pedal. but it still has the International logo on it. And these items are one of the more newer things, I suspect, but they're for Farm Owner International tractors, and they're a part of the bracket for the weights, the front weights. They're in the catalog or whatever, they're called a spacer, and I don't know what these cams do. They're a little, turn them over here. They're a round piece with an offset nut on it, or a six-sided flat that looks like it rotates and moves something a little bit one way or the other. And a lot of this old equipment was chain driven, and on these binders there's chains all over the place. And I grabbed this piece because it's a sprocket, but it's interesting that it has these long teeth in it. And what that is, the type of chain there, is called a detachable chain. And they actually still make the stuff. And it's the links are kind of square shaped, and they have a round piece on one end and a curved piece that fits over the mating round piece from the next link. And there's a special tool that you use to pop them apart and back together again. Or a sprocket with little bearings on it here with a different type of chain. It basically looks kind of like it's going to be a big size roller chain. This, I'm told, is a bracket, and I don't know what it's a bracket for, but it came off of an old windmill, and I don't know the vintage of the windmill, but I would say it probably was not that old. It was probably in the 60s or 70s. So, but kind of an ornate thing. Maybe somebody will make a dandy bookend out of it or something. This interesting little pinion. It's just a little pinion, but it has a little piece on the end with a little jaw on it. It's stuck, so I don't know exactly. But the jaw put me in mind of a knotter on a baler, on a twine type baler. And I thought, well, maybe that did come off of a baler. I believe this is a clip, a harness clip of some sort, and I can't begin to tell you what. Been around it a lot, but I haven't ridden horses enough to know, or set up teams of horses to know if this is something that goes with that. And mentioned that they have the axle nuts. There's just the nut itself. Well, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this sort of historic episode about some very old iron. So if you liked the video, give me a thumbs up. If you like the channel, be sure and subscribe. And if you have some comments to make, especially about the age or the identity of any of the things, just let me know. Put a comment in. And until our next episode or next video, happy trails.